Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I'm Rafe, and hey, we got a great show tonight because we always have great shows. So thanks for being with us. We appreciate you being here. You are the reason we are a global top 10% podcast. And hey, if you hit that little smiley star button, hit a like, give us 10 stars or whatever that is, tell your friends to listen, and all good things happen to us. We appreciate it if you'd send us a note at bufnagle@bufnagle.com and spread the love, spread the buff, tell everybody to listen, because you are, as we say, you are our marketing budget. So we appreciate you taking care of that for us. So, hey, this week I'm solo. Harry is out, Zach is out, and it's just me again. But we're going to talk about a wedding I went to a couple weeks back, and some things I learned on that wedding. So we went to Michelle and I drove out to Iowa, to Okoboji, Iowa, to a wedding. It was we made a week-long trip of it and drove up first to Minneapolis and saw Zach, like I said, and then we went out to western Minnesota and saw some places where my father grew up, out there in the wild expanses of the prairie out there, Westbrook, Minnesota, Curry, Minnesota, some very tiny towns, just doing what they do out there. The sun comes up every day in the east and sets in the west, and people live their quiet little lives, hopefully seeking the good and doing good things. So we had a good trip. There's a lot of driving, but we had a lot of fun. We saw a lot of corn on the way. We saw a lot of interesting things. Like I said, the towns in western Minnesota were great. I'd never been to that area before. I'd always gone through. I'd gone through Iowa on I-80, whatever that is, across the center of the state, but I'd never been in the northwest corner and seen the area around Okoboji. Someone referred to it when I was there as the like the Hamptons, but Iowa style. So if you ever get a chance to go to Okoboji, it's a chance to see something you don't always get to see, I guess, unless you live on the Hamptons. So we went to a wedding. It was actually on a Friday afternoon. I think Saturday tended to be booked, so they grabbed Friday afternoon. We knew the groom and got to meet the bride's family, which was great. They are native Iowans, so they live out there, and they have I guess a homestead is the way to put it, out there on the Great Prairie with a lot of corn growing by them. So it was a traditional Catholic wedding. Therefore, it had much ceremonies, lots of standing up and sitting down and kneeling and those sorts of things. There's lots of meaning, hidden symbols, and it was the whole shebang. And as a Catholic wedding, it is part of the Mass, so it's an hour-long ordeal, and it's just like the regular Sunday ceremony thing, but there are modifications to fit the circumstance. Right, so once you have this general framework in place, then different pieces are put in, and some pieces are taken out to make it fit for the occasion at hand. So there are special readings and prayers that are said during this Mass for matrimony. And there's some other bonus components, which might be components, I guess. Maybe we could coin a phrase there. Bonus components that get thrown in, extra little pieces, which is always fun. And the homily and the sermon focused, of course, on the couple and on some wedding things. And so what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to tell you some things I remember from the readings and the homily, and some things I learned on in some of the prayers and the liturgy, and some other thoughts along the way. And then we'll let you get on with the rest of your day. And hopefully you can take something with you to think about and help you seek the good. So, the Catholic Mass typically has four readings. We have, you get an Old Testament reading, a Psalm, a New Testament reading, and then a Gospel. And tradition has it for the matrimony Mass, the couple is highly involved in selecting which readings to do that. And you don't just pick any reading for that sort of thing. You tend to pick ones that speak to you and to you guys individually or as a couple. And so they chose whatever they chose. And the thing that mattered to me was this. Was the first reading was from the Old Testament, was from Genesis chapter 2. Now, we've talked about Genesis a number of times on this podcast, and the reason we do a lot is because it is right there at the beginning of Genesis that we come to the concept of Imago Dei, of being in the image and likeness of God, and to understand what we need to do. It's important to understand that concept. So the first reading was from chapter 2, and I've talked about this before a little bit, but I'm going to talk about chapter 1 and chapter 2 in contrast to each other, because it's interesting. They both are stories of creation, but they are not the same story, and that is that's what I want to talk about and try to get an idea of how they relate to each other. So the first reading was from chapter 2, and chapter 2 is kind of is like details from chapter 1 that details that are missing in chapter 1 that kind of fill out the story. Okay, so chapter 1 is the story of the 6 days of creation, and in my translation is not considered illicit, I guess. But at the beginning, there's just void and water. Okay, there's nothing there. I can think of that as day 0. There's some wind blowing around and there's water. And if you ever, when you're in the Bible and there's wind and there's water, that means creation's coming. Something's going to get created or made or changed or elevated. Something important is going to happen when there's wind and water. And on day 1, God says, I'm going to split the light from the darkness, and I'm going to have day and I'm going to have night. And that's day 1. We make day and night. And day 2, we split the sky above from the waters below, and we're going to come up with this dome that is the sky, and the heavens above and the earth below. And so that kind of splits those are the big pieces that get split. And then day 3, things start to get pretty exciting. We split we push all the ocean together in one place, we put the sea together, and we get some dry land, and we get the first instance of God seeing that it was good. Okay, we see God saw that it was good, and also vegetation comes up. Every kind of plant that can grow is now there on the dry land, and obviously some in the water too. And God saw that was good too. So now he's got 2 goods on day 3. And then on day 4, that the sun and the moon and the stars are created, and God sees that is good. And day 5, living creatures are in the water and in the air. God creates the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves, every kind of bird, all these animals and things, these things that move around are created. And God sees that is good. And here's an important thing. At this point, he says to these animate beings, he blesses them and says, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the waters in the seas, and let the birds multiply on earth." So that's the first blessing that comes in there is they are blessed to be fruitful and multiply. All right. And he saw, of course, that was good. And on day 6, all the land creatures come into being, the tame animals. Some of the translations call that the cattle. The crawling things, every kind of wild animal is in there. And God saw that it was good. And he makes, and then he says, "Let's make man according to our image and have dominion over the fish and the birds and all the animals." So God created mankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. So it's a very short little piece. It's almost like a tag along. At the end of day 6, he makes all these things. And at the end, he makes man. He makes man with capital M. Okay, so it's not just the man. It is man, the species, the mankind, some people like to call it. I just think the word is so hard to get my head around. I just like to call it man. That's what we are. We are the species man, and man is made in male and female, and he's created, and there they are. And God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and all the living things that crawl on the earth." And I guess that's a statement that people can use. If you're evil person seeking lots of power, then you tend to quote these things and quote them and say, therefore I should be able to do whatever I want. And that's not really dominion. I don't think that's just being, I don't know, that's not being a good steward, I guess they say. So God creates all these things, and at the end he makes man, and man has been blessed to be fertile and to multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, make it usable by man. And he looked at everything he made and found it very good. All right, and what's interesting here is in this verse, God doesn't just find it good; He finds it very good. Okay, and the celebrant at the wedding in Iowa pointed this out to us. Right, that God makes all sorts of things. He makes light and dark, and day and night, and sky and land, sea and sea monsters, great sea monsters, and fish and birds and cattle, crawling things, and every kind of wild animal, and all of that was good. But then he makes man. He makes male and female man, Adam, from the earth. He makes him from the earth, and he makes him in God's image and likeness. He makes Imago Dei, and he makes male and female man, mankind. He makes people, right? And he finds this to be very good. Okay, and this is a thing that's kind of interesting, because that's a different kind of good. It's another level of good, and we'll get back to that in just a little bit. But what we should do then is now go to chapter 2 and get the details about how man got in there. Okay, so in chapter 1 we see this kind of sequencing of these things and how the layers of the infinite logos has laid out all of this structure, and we should try to find some of these details about what matters here. And in this chapter 2, sometimes called the story of the nations, in one translation I have, another translation says, it's called another account of creation. All right, we see these details, and we see God making man from the dust and breathing life into him and putting him in the garden to till it and to keep it. So in this sense, when he makes man in chapter 1, we find out that in chapter 2, the way he did it is he took some dirt, put it together, right, and made a man, a singular man, lowercase m, and breathed life into him. And that's interesting, because that's what Adam means. Adam means from the earth, from the ground. And so God makes him, but he sees that it is, note this, it is not good. Right? He does all these things that are good, but he sees that it's not good for the man to be alone. So he says, I'm going to make him a helper. I'll find for him a partner, somebody to work with him. And he brings all of the animals to the man. Okay. So, and he says he shows them all the animals, and he has them name them. None of the animals that God brings forth for the man to name were suitable partners. Okay, and note here that the man is partaking in what could be kind of considered a finalizing component of creation in naming things. Okay, when you give them name, you give them meaning. It's not just this thing out there. You give it a name, whatever it is, whether it's eagle, or whether it's rhododendron, or whether it is platypus. These when I use those words now, and I say them here on the podcast, you know what I mean by that, and that human act of naming produces meaning that can be shared, right? And that is a creative element, and that is mankind living out some of that Imago Dei. Okay, and that's an important thing to keep in mind, is that we're just a verse or two after Imago Dei gets dropped into the scene here, we are doing those things that God does. Of course, not on the same level, but we are taking part in that. So none of these things that are with man there in the garden are suitable partners. So God, what does he do? He takes a rib from Adam and fashions it into a woman from man. And he brings her to the man, and the man says, and the celebrant pointed this out at the wedding. He said, I like to imagine I like to imagine what Adam was thinking at this point, right? You bring me, you bring me I don't know, you bring me a unicorn, you bring me a reindeer, and you bring me a duck, and you bring, I mean, like none of these things are really suitable helpers and partners for me. But this one, he says, okay, the man is quoted as saying, "This one at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh, and this one shall be called woman, for out of man this one has been taken." All right. And then we find the assignment that has been given, that therefore a man leaves his father and his mother and clings to his wife so that they become one flesh. And that is okay. That's the whole. Right? This is a reading at a wedding, okay. And this is an important thing to understand the nature of what is taking place there. Man has been made. Okay, man, the species has been made and made male and female, made bone of bone and flesh of flesh. So and being made that way in that context makes things not just good, but very good, right? The male and female are not boss and subordinate, but partners on an equal playing field, helpmates, and they are one flesh. Right. And a lot of times this carries this kind of crude, a joking sense of like, oh, this is the sexual intercourse component here. But it's a more fuller, it's a fuller, more spiritual thing. Is this one flesh? And the way to think about this is both both the man and the woman individually speak the language of their soul in the material world. That's how you are expressed physically as your body. Your soul is expressed physically as your body. It's the language with which you are expressed. All right. But their union, the union of the husband and wife, is a thing. All right. And that is the very good thing. Okay. So this seems to me like when they are brought together and they become one flesh, the idea is that this couple, this object that has two components in it, like diatomic oxygen kind of thing going on here. Okay. It seems to me that this is akin to God being Trinity of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Okay. The husband and wife are, I'm gonna make up a word here, are abinity. Okay. They're a pair. Right? One couple made of man and wife. They are a single entity. They are a single thing. All right. And it is this thing together that is very good. The married couple is very good. And when I was reading about this very good stuff, and I talked to the celebrant guy afterwards about this very good thing, and I said, so are there other times in the Bible where we find things that are very good? So I looked this up. I have this Bible app on my phone, and you can have it search for things. And I looked for very good, and I found 3 instances of things that are very good. All right, in the first book of Samuel, chapter 25, verses 15 and 16, there's this lady is talking about the men from David's army who were staying with him. Okay, and she says, "Yet these men were very good to us. We were not harmed, neither did we miss anything. All the while we were living among them during our stay in the open country. Day and night, they were a wall of protection for us the whole time we were pasturing the sheep near them." Okay. So in a certain sense, at least to me, that answers the question, what do very good men do? Okay. And very good men do this. They make sure people are not harmed. They make sure people are not of want of anything, do not miss anything while living among them. All right. And by day and night, they are a wall of protection, right? While you are living your life, pasturing your sheep near them. Okay. So there's this little model there hidden in Samuel about what very good men do. And that's first instance of very good. The next instance is in Sirach, chapter 39, verse 16. And it says, "All the works of the Lord are very good, and whatever he commands will be done at the appointed time." So that's kind of this is kind of a tautology. Basically, it says that the very good things are the things that the Lord does because the Lord does very good things. So this is kind of redundant. It's a little tautological, but very good things are things that God does. God does not make junk. God does very good things. And the last one is from Jeremiah chapter 24, verses 3 and 4. And it says, the Lord showed me 2 baskets of figs placed before the temple of the Lord. This was after King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon had taken into exile from Jerusalem King Jeconiah, son of Jehoiakim of Judah, together with the officials of Judah, the artisans and the smiths, and brought them to Babylon. One basket had very good figs, like first ripe figs, but the other basket had very bad figs, so bad that they could not be eaten. And the Lord said to me, "What do you see, Jeremiah?" And I said, "Figs. The good figs are very good, so I will regard as good the exiles from Judah, whom I have sent away from this place to the land of the Chaldeans. I will set my eyes upon them for good, and I will bring them back to this land. I will build them up and not tear them down. I will plant them and not pluck them up. I will give them a heart to know that I am the Lord, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God, for they shall return to me with their whole heart." So, all right, good figs are really good figs. They are like first ripe figs. And the opposite of that is very bad figs. And bad figs are ones that you don't want to eat. And, this is kind of an Aristotelian thing. Like, how do you know if something's good? And it's good if it does what it was created to do. And very good figs are figs that you should eat because that's what they're made to do. And very bad figs are not even good for eating. They should just be thrown out. So there's not a whole lot of very good stuff. And it turns out that that the married couple is very good. And that was the first lesson, is there's some very good stuff in there. Now, the final prayer at the end of the Mass of Matrimony is called the nuptial blessing. And I remember I remember all these prayers. There were a lot of prayers going on during the Mass, special ones devoted certainly to the couple. And it hit me during the final prayer, which, like I said, is the nuptial blessing, and that there's a lot of discussion here about children, right? There's a lot of stuff about children, and it turns out. So I looked up. I have this book here, and it talks about what the prayer at the end of the Mass for Matrimony. Now, I think this is the old version, so this might be like, I don't know. This might have been done in the 40s. I don't know, but the prayer said this. This is the prayer they used to say for the nuptial blessing. "May the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob be with you, and may he fulfill his blessing upon you, that you may see your children's children unto the 3rd and 4th generation, and may afterwards have everlasting life without end, by the help of our Lord Jesus Christ, who, with the Father and the Holy Ghost, liveth and reigneth God, world without end. Amen." That was the prayer. And what struck me there is this statement about children's children, and that's grandkids. And I've been very fortunate to start to witness that these days. And it's just talk about a wonderful blessing. That is what you should hope for people. And what is interesting here with regard to this nuptial prayer is some of the words in this prayer. He says, "May the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob be with you." And this naming of God as God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is how God referred to himself to Moses in Exodus 3 at the burning bush. He says that's who he is, right? And it's important to know what that means, okay, and why that's relevant. All right, Abraham is of course, he's the bedrock who trust. He's the start of all this stuff. Who trusted God, who trusted God's promise. Okay? Isaac is the miracle son of Abraham, who shows how God can make things work, how he carries out the promise. And Jacob's sons are the fulfillment of the promise. Okay, so it goes Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and then his sons fulfill this promise of building the nation of Israel. And so God is a God who, if you say God is God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you're saying God is a God of promises, and he fulfills promises, sometimes in very surprising ways. But the greatest blessing he brings on us is, it's not money, it's not land, it's not fame, it's not glory, but it's children. Right? And the blessing is always be fruitful and multiply. And notice he says that, he says this to the animals and to all the things that he makes, and he says it to the to the couple, to the male and female couple, be fruitful and multiply. And that's as you get older, those of us who are here recognize that there's very little else we really want at this point, other than exactly that blessing. That is the blessing that creates fulfillment, and it is a good beyond measure. It is one of those things that's maybe even very, very good. He talks about children's children onto the third and fourth generation. Now, the third and fourth generation, that phraseology shows up a lot in Scripture. All right, this shows up a number of times in the Old Testament, but it's mostly with regard to punishments. Like if you screw up, the punishment will be inflicted on your children and your children's children. But whenever that is spoken, it's also spoken with reference to with a statement about merciful love in there as well. So there's punishments that were going to last for down to the third or fourth generation, but there's merciful love that was going to be shown to thousands of generations. All right. So the nuance here is that in this case, what's interesting, what's ironic, I guess, in this prayer is the use of the third and fourth generation not as a warning or a curse, but actually flipped and being used in context with the blessing. So that's kind of cool. All right. So, and like I said, this reference to children and children's children, it was everywhere in these prayers. There was this general theme that the fundamental purpose of the marriage is to help carry out the assignment of being fruitful and multiplying. Right. That's what you do as Imago Dei. Okay. The mention of children is everywhere. And the idea is that you will be blessed with children. That concept is kind of like this constant. That's the water you're swimming in this liturgy. Okay, so the church is obviously very, very pro children, and rightly so. It's the creation of a new family that the church celebrates at a wedding. So these two individuals are forsaking all others, as is sometimes said, and themselves to create something that is greater than the sum of the parts. Right, a couple of one flesh sharing in the ultimate act that is consistent with Imago Dei, the act of creation. And this is, so we get to see this, okay? This is a part, and we forget how wonderful it is that we have this corridor where we get to witness these things that are they're not just of this realm. It's this window into this other world. So the church celebrates this stuff, and it's no wonder that we do so, because this is like a little glimpse of heaven on earth. This is what we get to see. And when you're at a wedding, you're there with old people and young people and little kids running around. Agnes with the flower girl, and she's waddled up the main aisle with the little flowers, and everybody thought that was kind of funny, a little comedic relief there. And it was and there were grandmas there and little babies and everybody in between. And that is it. That's the whole thing. That's the thing. All right. The wedding is the thing. Okay. And there's a dark side here. And that is that those who seek the ruin of souls, right? Those Satan and all his minions, they detest these open signs of the glory of God. All right. So Satan, the great deceiver, does everything he can to either prevent this from happening, to try to keep people from getting married, or to break it up once it's together. Okay. So one reason the community is there, one reason it's good to have the community there is to witness this vow making of the couple, because the community knows that it's going to take all of us to help them stay together as one flesh. That it's our job to see to it that when the bad guy shows up and tries to get them to go off the rails, that we are there to gently steer them back in the right direction. Okay, and thus there are celebrations afterwards. There's a wedding feast, and the wedding feast is always a joyous bash. It's the one in Iowa was no exception. It had a certain Iowa flair. It was great. It was great. It was great stuff. A celebration filled with all sorts of good things. Right. It was there was bounty and hospitality, sacrifice and dedication, beautiful decor and rich drink, and eyes of the young looking forward with hope toward their turn at the altar, and the eyes of the old looking backwards with a fondness to similar days. Remember that the kingdom of heaven is the great wedding feast of the Lamb. When you're at a feast, that's what it will be like. Okay, imagine like these great wedding feasts that you're at, and what if it was always like? That'd be awesome. What a thing that would be. All right, we should all practice these feasts here on earth in preparation for the great feast at the end. So, that was the wedding. All right. Those were the things I picked up. Those were the things that I learned. All right. In summary, all right, Iowa was awesome. It was a great time. People mock Iowa, and I love to mock Iowa. It does. But you know what? It is a wholesome place full of all sorts of goodness. If you know where to look, it's not glitzy and glamorous. It's like the Hamptons, but with Iowa style. All right. Weddings and children are very good because they reveal how we are indeed Imago Dei. And as Imago Dei, your charge is to find bone of your bone and flesh of your flesh and create something new. A new family, a line that will bless you with children and children's children, stretching to the third and fourth, and indeed to the 1,000th generation and beyond. And that is the blessing that we hope God grants to each one of you. In the meantime, seek the good, be the good, and spread the good, and enjoy the adventure of life.